What's up, everyone? This is Jay here from FantasyLabs, and I'm joined here with Pete, aka CSU Ram 88, to break down this Friday, February 26th slate with 8 games. And it's truly a perfect Friday slate, capping off a perfect week. We had solid slates every night this week, perfect amount of games. Pete, you had a pretty good night, I think, a nice little sweat at the end with Harden going off there. How's it going?
Doing well, Jay. Good night of fantasy. Even got a good goal in NHL at the end of the night. So can't complain after the last couple days of pure destruction and tilting. So it's going to be fun. And I'm a fan of our special guest tonight.
Yeah, we have a special guest who I don't think's made an appearance on the pod in a really, really long time.
Yeah, I had to, join you boys and, here to talk a little hoops and make my once a month cameo. And let's get this going. We got a nice 8-game slate on our Friday. Love it.
Yep.
Freaky Friday, boys. It's going to be fun. I am definitely excited. And Justin is going to give us the secret sauce to the fan model, which has been crushing lately, huh, Justin?
Yeah, pretty good showing today. And, let's look to keep it rolling, on Friday. So let's start this slate off. The first game of the slate, Hornets against the Pacers. Pacers coming in at 3-point favorites. Totals at 203. What do you got in terms of injuries there, Jay Sean?
We just got on the Hornets side, we got Spencer Hawes is questionable with a strained lower back. And on the Pacers side, we got CJ Miles out a few games with a strained left calf. And Rodney Stuckey with a right foot bone bruise could play. If he does, I'd imagine he'd be a little bit limited since he was on the video today, just happy to be back on the court. And that's it. Pete, who do you like? You got any cash plays in this? It's kind of a game I'm looking to probably avoid all around in cash.
The guy I'm looking at the most is Paul George. And one other thing real quickly, I just listened to JJ Redick's podcast recently, and he had Spencer Hawes on the pod. And Spencer's actually pretty cool.
I like Lowry more on that.
Yeah.
But Hawes is cool. Yeah.
Dudley's the GOAT.
Dudley's real cool.
Yeah.
Dudley's real cool. But yeah, it was interesting to hear his perspective. So hope we get to play Spencer Hawes one day down the road again. But in this spot, really, it's just Paul George for me. He's relatively cheap compared to the other, small forwards that you're going to be considering, like LeBron or Durant on other nights. And he can produce similar to those guys. So I think in this matchup, it's pretty decent. Now that MKG's out, he'll see some Batum. We'll see how Charlotte decides to cover him. But he's been solid lately at home here. I think he's definitely in consideration.
Yeah, I think if you want to go a little cheaper, you might want to look at Yamahimi on the Pacers. He's been playing really big minutes at center. 31 minutes last game. He's been in the 30s, around 30 for a while there. So if you kind of want a cheaper alternative at center, I'd look at him and
some Miles Turner maybe?
Yeah, some Miles Turner. There's been a lot of talk about him being a lot more aggressive in the fourth quarter, taking shots. And yeah, it's always tricky because power forward generally is really deep in terms of value. And Miles Turner, even though I do like him, he probably ends up, closer to like 5th at the position rather than at the top where I feel kind of compelled to play him. But I do like a little Miles Turner. Yeah, I think that kind of does it. On Charlotte's side, I think the closest guy you can get there is Kemba potentially, but not the greatest spot for him. And a little bit too much volatility in that front court. With Marvin, Zeller, Kaminsky, Al-Jeff, too many bodies there to really trust anybody.
Agree. Yeah, I like Mahimi a lot, kind of as a sneaky play at just $5K on FanDuel. I definitely like him to pay off that price.
Monte came off a good game too. I guess I should mention as well. He's definitely
against you in cash. Yeah.
Yeah, he did smash me.
Yeah, not a bad tournament play, I think, but I wouldn't go in cash.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I think that about wraps up that game. Let's move to another Eastern Conference game here. Wizards-Sixers. Wizards coming in 8.5-point favorites. It totals 214. So we definitely like this game in terms of overall pace. There's definitely some plays here. Let's go to injuries first. What do you got, Jay?
Yeah, we got Gary Neal on the Wizards. It's questionable with a sore right leg again. And then on the Philly side, we got TJ McConnell is questionable with a sprained right ankle. So not much, but definitely a juicy game for the Wizards, obviously going against Philly here. Pete, what are your thoughts on cash? I mean, you're looking at kind of Wall and Gortat as a strong cash plays.
This whole game is really juicy here. John Wall definitely played 9,200 on DraftKings, went for 60 fantasy points last time versus Philly. I mean, he's a walking triple-double. This is a best spot for him. Game should be relatively competitive in Philly as well, so less blowout risk considering Washington's on the road here. Love everything about the spot for him. Bradley Beal, I would normally love in this spot, but it's harder to trust him with this new role. They really are kind of limiting his minutes with the schedule the way it is now. I'm sure they're going to ramp that up a little bit for the playoffs, but they definitely want to make sure he's healthy going in. So can't really trust him, and that kind of murks up the rest of the wings as well. So I think Gortat's the other guy that I'd consider on Washington. Justin, are you looking at anyone in Philly potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, not in cash really. It's kind of thin there. Ish Smith, the minutes are kind of up and down a little bit. McConnell get in there, Marshall potentially. I don't trust Ish too much, and Nerlens and Jaw, more tournament plays for me than cash. They just kind of alternate good and bad games. I know Jaw, big usage, big scoring potential, but the minutes aren't there on some nights. He only played 24 last game. I know it's part of a blow-up, but I'm hesitant to really roll any of these guys in cash. Going back to Washington real quick, let's talk about Beal.
I like Beal on FanDuel. He's got a soft price there.
The thing with Beal though is that when you kind of look at the schedule, he came off a back-to-back and then a back-to-back recently. So
he could get more.
Yeah, so I think he could definitely get more minutes in this one. I actually think there's a decent chance that he starts on Friday, just because those scheduling kind of quirks before kind of necessitated him coming off the bench and playing limited minutes behind Temple. I think maybe we see him get the start, and if he does get the start, then I'm comfortable rolling out in cash on FanDuel, if that's the case in this juicy spot.
I think I'm comfortable even off the bench. I trust his minutes in this one going against Philly at 5,700. He's 64 on DK, so it's a lot harder to do there if he doesn't start. But I think I'm fine either way in cash. We have to start two shooting guards here.
So that's my boy, real quick. This goes way back, but
Beal?
Industry. Oh yeah, Beal.
Yeah. Tommy's the donkey. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had an argument about it. Bradley Beal. He said, who did he compare him to? Jay? He compared him to some absolute.
I don't know. Probably at that time, it's probably Etuan Moore, which was a huge dig. No, I don't know. He was a chucker. Once a chucker, always a chucker.
I love Bradley Beal.
I did too.
Talent, and especially when he starts, he's a lot.
Unfortunate injuries, but yeah, I mean, 5,700 is really cheap. We have a lot of guys. Shooting guard, you always kind of want one of these guys in that 5K range, and I think this is a strong play compared to some of these other guys at around 5K.
So Nerlens or Ja, which are you feeling more in tournaments?
I always like Nerlens more because I feel like he can do more secondary stats with steals and blocks a little bit. So I kind of like his upside a little bit more. Ja, I think, will rely more on scoring. I think it's a decently tough matchup in the paint against Gortat.
What do you think, Pete?
I'm going to stay off both. I just looked at the history of these guys in this matchup. Ja went for like 13 fantasy points versus the Wizards last time. Rollins went for 31, so I guess in that regard I'd lean him. But I have some other tournament plays I like more. I do think that they could have a really nice game, but Washington now has a lot of bodies in the front court. I don't think they're going to just get absolutely dominated. Nene's playing better. He's still kind of a force defensively. And Markieff can actually play some decent defense sometimes, especially off the bench. So I don't love either.
And I'll be remiss if I don't mention at least Robert Covington as a tournament play against this Washington shooting guard spot. The minutes are always a little shaky with him. They have some guys there, Hollis Thompson, Nick Stauskas, that can take some minutes away. But I think if you want some Covington tournaments, I don't mind that either, given this juicy spot.
Yeah, and he is 4,700 on FanDuel, which is really cheap. So I think he's, depending on the small forward overall breakdown, that he even could creep into cash consideration as a cheap option there.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to this next game here. Cavs Raptors. Cavs coming as 1-point favorites, which is surprisingly low. Total's 207. What do we got in terms of injuries here, Jay?
Yeah, on the Cavs side, we got Mo Williams not traveling with the team because of a sore left knee, and he'll be reevaluated next week. And then we got Iman Shumpert is questionable with a sprained left shoulder, and nothing on the Raptors side. This total actually surprised me. This is two really strong defenses, and we got a 207 total. So I kind of like getting some exposure to this game actually in cash. I think this is a good spot for LeBron, kind of a difficult matchup for everyone on the Cavs. So I think LeBron might have to step up and facilitate a bit more than usual. So I kind of like him here. Anyone else you're looking at in cash, Pete?
There's some interesting options, but real quick before we go into go into more analysis for this game, Joe Johnson got released by the Nets today, and from what I've read and just thinking about it, I think he probably lands in Cleveland. Jay and Justin, I guess we can start with Jay. What do you think about that in terms of just real life, how that's going to affect the Cavs and potentially some fantasy impact as well?
Well, I don't think he can get picked up by the time tomorrow's game starts.
I'm not suggesting for tomorrow. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no. No, I think it's more of just kind of a push deeper in the playoffs. He's a vet presence. Obviously, he's made big shots. So, yeah, I like the pickup for them. I mean, he can still score, and I think he's valuable to teams. I like it for the Cavs overall.
Yeah, I think he probably ends up taking Richard Jefferson's minutes at backing up LeBron at the three. I think they're pretty full on, in the backcourt and with Shumpert and J.R. Smith on the wing. So, he'll probably end up being like a 14 to 15 minute guy, maybe a little bit more depending on if they want to cut Shumpert's minutes a little bit. But he hasn't been that good this year. I think his PER is down to like 11. So more like a stabilizing presence and an upgrade over RJF than anything.
Yeah, I view him more as like a playoff piece, kind of if they're in need of fourth quarter scoring, outside of LeBron or, Kyrie, he could get some minutes.
One thing I like about it for the Cavs potentially is the ability just to have more of those, big wings, with Shumpert and JR, LeBron, now Joe Johnson potentially. That gives them a lot of guys that are tall and that can switch on defense. I think if they needed to play smaller, that would be an option for them with Joe Johnson.
Yeah, he can play 2 through 4, so yeah.
Right. So I like that for them, and I hope that happens just because I want to see some competitive series potentially with Golden State. But back to this game from a fantasy perspective, I think the sneaky guy, or not even sneaky, but the other guy that I definitely will be looking at if you want a piece of this is Kyle Lowry. I think he's in a good spot here. And anytime they have a really competitive game, especially at home, he can have a really nice game. In 2 games so far this year against Cleveland, Lowry's averaging 51 fantasy points on DraftKings. So the price of $8,400 if you want to go down from Wall, who I probably prefer to Lowry, but if you wanted to be a little bit different and get some savings, I think Lowry's an elite option in this spot.
Yeah, that about does it. What do you think? Going back to Cleveland, we got to cover a couple guys here: Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. More tournament plays for me here. I think LeBron's really the only guy that sticks out for me on the Cavs and cash.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely tournament only for Love and Kyrie. And then on Toronto side, even, I don't mind some DeRozan exposure. I really like this total that they're giving us. 207 is high and close game. And one thing with Lowry is I love playing him in these close games because he really steps up his play late in the fourth quarter. We've seen it so many times. And
play a lot of minutes, too.
He really penetrates, attacks the rim at the end, especially if they have a lead or they're behind. So I feel pretty safe with Lowry's floor in this one. So
yeah, like Pete said, 39, 40 minutes. 38 in most games over the last couple of weeks. So he plays heavy minutes. And with this 1-point spread, it really shapes up well for him.
Yeah, and 8,400 on DK is definitely soft for him. So I like that play there.
Other than that, I think it's a kind of dicey. Valanciunas, don't really want to target it in a matchup against Cleveland's big men. Not on JR, not on Tristan's fine in some GPPs, but his minutes are a little shaky with Channing Frye there now. So, I don't really trust his floor as much to consider him in cash.
Agreed. Yeah, he's more of a FanDuel centric play. It's 4,900.
Yeah.
So not on DK.
All right. I think we'll move on to the next game here. Magic against the Knicks. Knicks coming in at 1.5-point favorites. Totals 206.5. What do you got in terms of injuries, Jay?
Only injury in this game is Aaron Aflalo with a bruised thigh is expected to play, so we can count him in this one. And that's it. But, yeah, close spread, another pretty high total here. Magic are on a back-to-back. We saw him play tonight. And pretty beat up for a bit on the Warriors' defense. That starting five is really putting together some good lines night in and night out, and they're all underpriced still. So the Knicks' defense isn't what it used to be, really. They're struggling a lot lately, so I don't mind attacking them. And I'm not too worried about the back-to-back for Magic because a lot of them kind of played a bit limited minutes. I think Depot sat with 5.5 minutes left tonight and didn't come back. So we're getting some value with these guys. Definitely I'm fine with Oladipo again, I think, in this one with the way he's been playing, the minutes especially. And I don't mind some Fournier as well in cash at his discounted price, especially on FanDuel. Who else do you like in this one, Pete?
Horny for Forney.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he played pretty well tonight. Definitely a guy.
Crushed.
He did. He really did. I think that he's definitely an option. I like his rotation if that stays the same, where he comes out earlier in the first quarter. That's something also I like with Durant, too. I think just off topic.
Yeah.
Durant, coming out early in the first quarter, then starting the
About time Donovan started staggering their minutes.
Of course, finally fucking figuring it out. So
Donk.
That total donk move by Donovan. But I like that for Fournier just for his minutes and his role. Some time off the court or on the court away from Oladipo, I think is good for him. So I like him. And then in New York, I mean, I think you have to look at Melo and Porzingis always as options. Porzingis, nice minutes last couple games, 33 and 36. Hasn't been producing the huge stat lines we saw kind of early in the season, but still averaging 33 fantasy points against this Orlando team, and he's only 6,500 on DraftKings. So I think he's reasonable. Justin, you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm with you on Melo and Depot and Fournier. Love Fournier's minutes floor. That's something I liked about him a lot as a play for Thursday slate too. He's pretty much guaranteed to see like 37 with upwards of 42 on some nights too. So love that for him. Talk about some other fringier guys, Nick Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. We don't love targeting this Knicks front court, which makes those two more tournament plays. I do like Aaron Gordon quite a bit, though, kind of as a tournament play. He always kind of flies under the radar, has big, kind of all-around potential. At power forward, there's usually some more obvious value plays, and he kind of always sneaks under the radar a bit. So like him. Robin Lopez, always a guy that has big stat line potential in spots that we don't usually expect it. So he's been playing pretty solid minutes for him. Anything like above consistently 25 in that 30 range potentially is good. And I don't mind a little exposure to him as well.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, probably I think Melo's price on DK is very soft, and I like him a lot in this game. I think he's very, very safe. So I think he's a guy I'm probably going to try to target in cash on DK. And then Fournier on FanDuel at 5,500 with the minutes he's getting. I mean, ever since Tobias has been gone, he's been just rock solid. So I don't think that's a play you want to overlook too much at just 5,500 there.
All right, so let's move on to this next game here. Bulls-Hawks. We don't have a spread right now. I think we're waiting on the status of Derrick Rose, and Jay can fill us in on that on details of that late scratch last game. And
yeah, that game that was tricky because I actually was leaning on Powell being out or possibly limited because all the beat writers were kind of off him and saying, "Oh, Powell looks visibly sick, very ill," and I was like, "Oh, time to load up on Bobby Portis." And then, and then you get news Rose out, Powell in, and it was kind of like, oh,
But we hedged. We were kind of predicting a little bit, and we got a little Etwan Moore, and he disappointed big time as well. Getting that start at point guard, and
he did, but he still finished. I mean, he didn't cripple any lineups.
Right.
So
Derrick Rose, though.
he crippled lineups for sure. But speaking of these two, though, Powell is probable with illness. I mean, I'm assuming he'll play because he played, almost triple-double last game, played pretty big minutes with the same illness. And then Derrick Rose is questionable with right hamstring tendonitis, and nothing on the Hawks side.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think here, Pete? Are you interested in getting a piece of Rose? Are we back on Powell? I think this matchup overall with the Bulls and Hawks is pretty juicy for both front courts in general.
I'll definitely have Derrick Rose exposure, especially on DraftKings where you can swap off if he doesn't play.
Mm-hmm.
I think for tournaments, everyone's going to be on Wall, Lowry, and some other options, and rightfully so. And he could be a great tournament play, capitalizing on recency bias. So I like him. Powell, I mean, I don't really want to do it, but he's probably still a good play. It makes me nervous when he's at the end of the year, not feeling good. But he still puts up numbers. One thing to note is he's only averaged 33 fantasy points in 2 games versus Atlanta. So we'll see. I'm not really targeting anyone else, though, on the Bulls.
Yeah, on the Bulls, I think a lot of it will depend on the status of Rose, which we'll hopefully get by the time lineups lock. So I definitely like Powell quite a bit if Rose is out. And then I think you roll the dice again with Etwan if Rose is out, especially if Etwan's trying another starting point guard. I'm going to run that back for sure.
Yeah, and going to the Hawks side, like I mentioned, juicy matchup for the front court here. So I like Millsap and Horford plenty in this one. Chicago really struggles to rebound the ball, and they've been generous all year really to front court players. So Millsap is solidly in cash consideration for me. And Horford's right there too. You can make the case for him. I think his pricing is pretty soft, especially on DraftKings, I believe.
Yeah, 7,100. I like both a lot. Millsap's a little bit discounted too. And I mean, how many players have we seen torch this front court? It's been a lot now. So I think they're safe. I think there are other plays at center that might be a little better. So I'd probably maybe lean Horford more as a strong tournament play. And if you end up with them in cash, I think it's totally fine as well.
I think we'll see Horford in a lot of cash game lineups. I actually think there's a lot of merit to it. Coming off a 70 fantasy point game versus Golden State, he's averaged 48 fantasy points in 2 games, so a decent sample for Chicago. 7,100 on DraftKings. I mean, he's going to have a high projection, I think. And I think the recency bias makes me a little hesitant. I wish he wasn't coming after this monster game. That'll drive a lot of ownership on him, but he's definitely
he's definitely safe too. I mean, this is a great spot for him, and he's not overly priced at all on either side. So he's
up 70 fantasy points against Golden State. I mean,
that's massive, and this is a juicy matchup for him.
Yeah, I saw 39 minutes last game too, which is kind of always my concern with Horford is the minutes, and Splitter being out kind of helps things, and they're a little thinner on the front court, having to lean on Mike Scott and Muscala. So I definitely like Horford in this spot as well.
And then I think you can have some tournament exposure to Schroeder, like usual. I think he's always a guy you want some exposure to in tournaments with his upside.
Yep.
Anything else?
I agree with you on Schroeder.
Yeah, and I mean, no Jeff Teague here.
Not really.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pass on my boy Korver. Finally.
Right?
Yeah, man.
Not for the Bulls at the end of that game was freaking Doug McDermott.
Oh yeah,
McD. Yeah. He actually.
He had some good games. 38 fantasy points, then 17, then 22. I mean, that's pretty solid for McDermott.
No, it's not bad at all. Yeah.
Not gonna play him, but
just worth noting. All right, let's move on to our next game. We're out of the Eastern Conference. Time to get to the real meat of this podcast. Move over to the West. Denver versus Dallas. Mavs come in as 5-point favorites. A more West-like total, 207.5. What do we got in terms of injuries here, Jay?
Yeah, nice little total here, of course, with the West. Only notable injury is Darren with a dislocated left finger, and he vowed he'll play, so we can fully expect him to play in this one. That's it. But, definitely some plays here I think are interesting. I I feel like this is more kind of overall a strong tournament game to target, kind of especially on the Mavs side a little bit more. On the Nuggets, I mean, it's kind of tough to trust Jokic that much. I definitely like him in this one, but I'll probably lean more tournament for him. Gary Harris has a cheap price, so I wouldn't necessarily mind at 4,800 some exposure to him in cash possibly. But I think we got some other guys that aren't too much more that are a bit safer there. And then I think tournament-wise, you definitely want to look at, Will Barton in this one. I think Gallo is fine in this high total, and maybe some Fareed exposure as well.
This game, I'm rooting for Dallas now. I mean, I'm a Denver
Oh,
guy. I love all the Denver
man.
guys. Gotta
Quick to sell out, man.
Gotta support Cuban, man.
I'm still rooting for the Nuggets.
I'm rooting for Dallas. I love them. I do like where the Nuggets are going, and I'm a fan.
They have they're hoarding picks, and they got Jokic, greatest player of all time.
Makes sense. Dallas rooting for the playoffs, which will be good for the Mavericks and Mark. Denver should be rooting to lose.
No, they definitely. Okay, true.
So I think it makes sense for both. It's beneficial for everyone if Dallas wins.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I can't argue with that. I want the Nuggets to lose every single game.
Yeah, I like what we're doing with our team. We definitely have a good nucleus. And one interesting thing from watching the last Denver game is Malone has been preaching defensive rebounding so hard, and they did a great job versus the Clippers. So we'll see if they can come out motivated again. That's one thing I will.
Their D has picked up. Yeah, they have actually looked a little bit better, and I think Nurkic is their best front court defender, and he's not even playing.
Mm-hmm. So it's one thing to pay attention to here for opponents of Denver is this team going to come out and play really hard on the defensive end, as they were giving up a ton of fantasy points in the past, and they've definitely played some really bad defense in the past as well. So that's one thing to monitor just going forward with this team. But yeah, no real cash game plays for me. Although Dirk is in consideration, only 6,300 coming off a 45 fantasy point game versus Oklahoma City. Definitely like him, but it is tough to take him in cash, just given sometimes some, I wouldn't say volatile minutes, but sometimes he can sit a little bit more, especially if they were to get up a decent amount in this game. But
what worries me about Dirk really is like the lack of supporting stats. He rebounds really poorly for his position, for his size, and doesn't give – I mean, he can have like a 24 point game with very little peripherals and then, be relatively disappointing. So he's definitely I don't trust him enough to roll him in cash either. What do you think about Darren Williams here? I think he's like the only guy close enough to possibly a cash game play, but he's coming off. He's playing with a dislocated finger here.
Yeah, I'm probably more worried about his finger than he is, and then Carlisle is too. So I don't think that's not my opinion, but Carlisle's opinion. I think I don't think it's great. I think there is some downside there. I think an injured finger is really easy to re-injure if it's not healed 100%, especially in basketball. So, yeah, I'm looking to pass on him in cash and just kind of avoid that risk and the chance that, he could really cripple your cash game lineup. Going back to Jokic, I'm probably comfortable rolling him in cash. I don't know about you guys. What do you think with the safety of him right now?
Tournament play only for me.
Tournament, okay. That's cool.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I think he's in cash consideration. I think what really kind of threw people off was that game against Sacramento where he only played like 4 minutes. That kind of like threw people off for like a really big other than that, I think he's in that 24 to 26 minute range mostly. He's played Boogie twice in his last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
That's been his 4-minute game and his 20.2 minute game. So you take those out of sample, and he's played 25, 30, and 26. So I'm not.
That's plenty.
That's a lot for. Yeah. I'd roll Jokic in cash if I knew he's going to get 24 to 26 minutes. So he's in consideration for me. I'm not too afraid of like Zaza getting him into foul trouble. With Jokic, all it comes down to is minutes for me. And Jokic isn't playing. He's on the rotation, and he's just basically splitting with Joff.
So I'll take it to the round table you guys just did where you talked about cash games, and Adam brought up where he kind of likes going cash guys that have upside. I think Jokic fits the bill perfectly because he has a lot of upside here, and he's also a bit safe when we project his minutes. We're going to project him around 25, I imagine, in this one. So I like the cash game upside he offers here.
But I do get Pete's point though that it's a little risky.
Let me give you three games around the All-Star break, which was not that long ago. Here's a stat line. Right before the All-Star break, he went for 7 fantasy points in 14 minutes, 17 fantasy points in 25 minutes, and then 0.75 fantasy points in 4 minutes. So he went for an average of 8 fantasy points over a 3-game sample.
Well, then, if you want to do 3-game samples, why don't you jump to his 3 recent game samples without like Nurkic?
Go farther back, and it's like 40, 50. I mean, that's why it's like the perfect tournament play to me. But
I think given where they're at right now and this exact game, I think he's safe enough. But we've covered a few centers that are probably a bit safer that are probably worth it. So I agree.
Horford. I would take Horford on a play.
Yeah, and I agree. I probably would too. Yeah,
I agree.
Also, real quick too. I mean, with this whole situation, I mean, Zaza is an underrated defender, in my opinion. I think he's a pretty solid defender, especially against someone like Jokic.
I don't think anyone can defend Jokic. He's
very skilled,
sweet, buttery, soft.
So skilled.
He is nasty. I'm not worried about anybody covering him.
Okay. I'm just saying Zaza's.
No, I know. Speaking of Zaza, he's not a bad play either.
I've played Zaza one time all year, and I probably should have. He's solid.
He had a stretch where he was always up there, but yeah.
41 fantasy points for Denver in their one game.
Yeah, I don't mind him as a play here. Probably more of a tournament play for sure, though.
Zaza or Nurkic? I probably prefer Jokic. Sorry, I probably prefer Jokic for the ceiling.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Zaza though, 41 fantasy points for some last time and has been pretty good. I think it's Jokic, but I think it's pretty close.
All right.
Great.
All right, so let's move on to the next game. All right, I think this is the highest over/under of the slate, and this is where a lot of, as people would say, fantasy goodness will be found. Clippers versus Kings. Clips come in 2.5-point favorites. Love that. It's a close spread and over/under of 219. So let's get into the injuries here, Joe.
Yeah, massive total and no injuries. Either team outside of still Blake, suspended, injured, and Austin Rivers, of course, who we're really going to miss in this one for sure as an option to play. But, yeah, I think starting things off on the Clippers side, I think you should strongly look at Chris Paul as possibly an anchor to your cash game lineups on both sides. Just a great spot for him overall. Close game, kind of carrying this team right now. Very, very safe, high floor. So he's a player I'm definitely looking at to get in on both sides. And then obviously DeAndre, I think, is a great spot here. But we kind of went over some other centers that are cheaper that I'd probably rather go than DeAndre. But I still think he's a cash option here. And then on FanDuel, I think it's pretty strong going JJ Redick at just 4,900 in cash against the Kings. We've seen them not be able to defend the three and not stop really any guards at all. So I like that play as well.
Oh, yeah. CP3 and John Wall is the dream scenario to have a point guard tomorrow. Chris Paul should have an absolutely monster spot. Just think it's a dream scenario. I also like J.J. Redick, and I think Jamal Crawford's also in consideration. I know he burned everyone with that 1.5-point game. Just what a brutal stretch that was.
But I came back on the next pod with Brian, and I got over Crawford burned me hard that game, and I was ready to jump back on and go Crawford in cash, and he's finished with 26.5. So you got to have a short memory in this game, and those are the dividends it pays when you forget about a one-game sample size.
I wish Blake was playing in this game. He would just murder against this team. But, I think that's it really for me. I think the guards are all I'm really considering for the Clippers. The front court's muddled now. Jeff Green's playing. They got all the wings. And obviously, DeAndre Jordan's a great play, but I think there's some other centers that you want to consider.
Yeah, DeAndre's more of a tournament play for me tomorrow because I don't realistically think I'll roll him in cash, even though he's obviously really generously priced on DraftKings, as always. And I'm a little worried about Boogie foul trouble potentially. That always comes with having to guard him. So DeAndre, more of a tournament play for me, but I agree. I'm all over CP3 and Redick, and Jamal is right there back into the mix as well. Going to the Kings side, so we're rolling anybody in cash here. I know we talked about centers here, Boogie Cousins. I think he's probably kind of the same boat as DeAndre for me, where I don't think I'm going to realistically roll him in cash anywhere. I like him, but he's probably more of a tournament play. And kind of the same thing with like Rondo and Rudy Gay as well. I don't think I'm cashing anybody on the Kings, even with this high total.
I agree. Yeah, it kind of hurts to not cash these guys, especially on a slate where I think you can get Boogie in. I don't think it'll. We went over like 8 cheap shooting guards that are plenty fine in cash. So I think you can comfortably fit Boogie, but we got guys 2K, 1,500 less that are in great matchups and I think can save you salary that you could spend elsewhere to maybe get Chris Paul or John Wall or Melo on DK or whoever. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think this is mostly a tournament side, especially like Rondo and Rudy Gay here. And I don't mind some exposure to Darren Collison, who's been playing pretty heavy minutes, and I really like getting a piece of this total if you're kind of looking for secondary players or players off the bench with low ownership. Kind of attacking the highest total on the slate.
Good call on Collison, Jay. That is the way to probably get exposure to Sacramento. I'm not going to play Rondo, not going to play Gay. Cousins is probably too expensive and hasn't really dominated against the Clippers. And that makes sense. DeAndre Jordan is probably one of the guys, if you want someone to guard Cousins, someone who's bigger than him in terms of height and just can bother a lot of his shots. I think makes sense. He's only averaged 42 fantasy points versus the Clippers in 3 games, which is 9 less than his average of 51. So makes sense to me. I think that the Clippers are the better place here, and I think it's the guards and then Darren Collison, like Jay suggested, for Sacramento.
All right, massive disrespect to Quincy Acey, but we'll move on. Last game in the slate, Grizzlies.
What, you have something for Quincy Acey? I've never heard this before. Is this your boy at all?
I think it was entirely a joke.
I know it's a joke.
I'm massively tilted that he plays meaningful minutes in this team.
Dude, he's so much better than Kendrick Perkins. It's not even close.
I mean, I think everybody in the NBA is better than him, though.
People thought I played Agenta when I played because I was complaining about Kendrick Perkins a bunch on Twitter, and it's when I played Drew, and I was just rooting for the game to stay even. And Kendrick Perkins just demolishes that team.
Oh, yeah.
So bad.
Yeah, AC is basically like Boogie Cousins when you compare him to Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah, I agree.
Good for him.
I'm going to lay off Quincy Acey here, though I do want to see a little bit more Willie Trilly in the mix. All right, so let's move on to this last game here, Grizzlies-Lakers. Grizzlies come in 4-point favorites, which is surprisingly a little low, but totals at 209.5. Coming in, I don't think we have any injuries outside of Tony Allen, right? Jay? Yeah,
just Tony Allen with the sore left knee, and I think he was active last game, but he didn't play. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, we can consider him questionable for this one, I guess, which kind of shapes up. I think it's a pretty big part if we want to kind of go. I think Matt Barnes gets a little more security there, if whether Tony Allen plays or not, a bit. So Pete, I'll kick it to you. We can start with cash games on the Grizzlies side. Obviously, we want a piece. We just saw these teams play last game. Obviously, some of these Grizzlies came through huge. None other than Matt Barnes. What are your thoughts on him, Pete?
Well, I mean, it is shocking that this is a 4-point favorite with superstar Matt Barnes on, man. I mean, this guy almost scored as many fantasy points as LeBron in his last performance against on the 24th. I'm assuming about 50 fantasy points for Matt Barnes this game. So
that's his floor.
It's a stone cold lock. Like 5,400 on DraftKings. I'd pay $10K. And it's really all you need to know about Memphis. I mean, Mike Conley's pretty solid too, but
he's no Matt Barnes.
He's no Matt Barnes, exactly.
Nobody's Matt Barnes. Wow. My favorite thing with Matt Barnes is how Conley didn't come back in the game, even though it got decently close at the end. But Barnes Barnes just goes full game. Like,
once to get close, you got to
the three of us
the reinforcements.
If you put the three of us in Bales plus Matt Barnes, we win the NBA title.
yeah,
Matt Barnes closed the game.
Right. No, he's definitely transformed into an elite player against the Lakers. Regardless of if Tony Allen's out or not, I mean, why would you care about that in cash when you can just plug Matt Barnes in? So definitely a strong play here. I definitely like Conley a lot. Obviously, I think he'll carry a pretty heavy ownership. I don't mind kind of fading him in tournaments. I think he'll definitely be kind of chalky a bit. Strong cash play for me. Matt Barnes is definitely cheap. $5K. Like Pete said, he paid $10K for him. Anybody else on this team? I mean, Zebo didn't have the game we wanted, but I think overall I'm still fine with him more on FanDuel at 6,500. I'm totally fine rolling him in cash.
I'm going to play him tomorrow too.
Yeah,
I'm playing him every day.
Yeah, I think you look at Zebo on FanDuel and Paul Millsap on DK good at power forward. Those are your kind of two options on the two sides. So
yeah, you could play. I mean, you could argue you want three Memphis guys: Matt Barnes, locks, Zebo's a really good player.
Yeah, I think people are like actually wondering what we actually would do with Matt Barnes.
I mean, how can you not play him?
Pete might be a little biased here after last game, but I am not strong on Barnes and cash. But he's an option. His price went up a little. I'm fine. I think overall, I mean, small forward. Let's see. You can definitely get away with it. I don't think small forward's loaded or anything, or we got other guys that are not LeBron or Melo or Paul George that you can really go. So I think pairing LeBron and Barnes I think is fine at small forward.
Honest question, Jay. Matt Barnes or LeBron tomorrow?
Well, Barnes. Yeah, Barnes. Yeah. In a fight or what's the question here?
No. Serious question. Can you factor in price LeBron or Matt Barnes?
I mean,
I'm going Matt Barnes.
Oh God.
I mean, how serious of a question is this?
I mean, it's half the price. It's half the price. And it's a somewhat serious question.
I got LeBron.
Who's going to have a higher rating tomorrow on Fan Model?
LeBron.
Easily.
LeBron, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make sure now. No. I think LeBron will, yeah.
Wow. All right.
I'm not going to be swayed by all this recency bias and be pressured to go super high on Matt Barnes. I think he's fine as a punt play, but I'm not going absolutely ham because he just went off.
He's got a pretty poor rating. We're projecting him at 20 fantasy points tomorrow as of right now, late at night.
We need to be at least triple that.
I was going to suggest, I mean, LeBron's at 46. I put Matt Barnes to about 49. 49.3 points for Matt Barnes.
Call your shot. I like
it. Book it.
Yeah.
He'd have like a 96 rating if we did that.
He'd break the model, I think.
Oh, that's what he deserves to do.
Barnes Labs.
What about? All right, all right. I'll be honest here. What about D'Angelo Russell? Can we talk about him?
Yeah, let's get to the Lakers side.
37 fantasy points. He's looking pretty good recently, especially when he plays minutes. And he had a nice game there. And if they're playing to actually play, they should be giving Russell a lot of minutes.
No, he's going to get at least 30, I think, every game the rest of the season, or right around that, unless it's a massive blowout or whatnot. So. Him and Randall are definitely going to get their minutes the rest of the season. Clarkson too. So I like the security kind of these guys. I don't love the matchup or anything too much, but yeah, I'm fine with Russell at 5,200 if you're in need to kind of save there. But we got Conley at 69, who I like him more. His safety, obviously security more, even at their prices. So I know last game Russell was really low. I think 4% owned in tournaments.
Yeah, because he came off a disappointing game
right.
where he didn't play nearly as much as people expected him to, so that was a little depressed there. I think, I like I don't know. I don't even trust Byron Scott, but he said that for what it's worth, that Clarkson, Randall, and Russell are going to play 30-plus minutes the rest of the way. So I don't know. I feel a little bit better about Russell's floor because of that. And yeah, I'm not too as afraid of a Grizzlies defense without Marcus Gasol. I think obviously it suffers a little bit overall. They still have some good pieces, and Tony Allen's questionable. His absence will soften their defense as well. So I'm fine with a little Russell, a little Clarkson. Am I rolling them in cash? Probably not, unless I need kind of a bargain play. But both those guys are like generously priced on DK, like always. Clarkson especially. So they're in the mix, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're definitely in the mix, but I kind of like all of them more as tournament plays. And I kind of look at the line, this 4-point spread. I think the Grizzlies are going to cover this one.
I agree. Where are we at on Julius Randle?
I love him as a tournament play.
Yeah, he's been a little too volatile for my liking for cash, but I do like him in tournaments as well. Always has 15 and 10, 20 potential. And yeah, Larry Nance is barely playing now because of his knee, and there's not a lot of depth behind Randle in that front court.
I like Randle quite a bit in this spot. Obviously, there's better matchups, but at home here, closing out the night, power forward, he's been solid just in general. He's no Matt Barnes, but
who is?
Exactly. He's been fine. 28 fantasy points in 2 games versus Memphis. He's going to get you around 5x. Should be his expectation tomorrow on DraftKings, and he's solid and definitely has some upside as well.
Agree. All right. Well, that pretty much covers this slate. Not a bad slate. Pretty straightforward. Let's jump into the position by position really quick on DraftKings and run through some quick hits.
Give me small forward. You guys go take the.
Okay, I'll start with point guard. You really want small forwards? You just want to say the least words. There's only 4 plays there.
Oh, there's a really important play at small forward. So.
Well, Matt Barnes. All right, yeah, you can have.
I may have small forward.
You can have small forward. I'll start with point guard here. On DK cash, I think Chris Paul is a staple to your lineup. I think you want to pay for him. Kind of on both sides here. I think John Wall obviously is another really strong cash play. Real quick, who do you guys like more between those two?
Wall and John Wall and Chris.
Yeah, John Wall and Chris Paul. Who do you like more?
I go CP3 personally.
Okay. I don't think you can really go wrong with either. I like
very, very close. Wall's cheaper on DraftKings, so for points.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Very similar.
Cool. That's fair. All right. Well, and then I got Rondo as a kind of strong tournament play. Obviously, a high total in that game. I'm not willing to go him in cash over obviously Chris Paul and John Wall, even at more of a price. Kyle Lowry, I think, is fine for cash on DK at 8,400. We kind of mentioned how he plays additional minutes in the fourth quarter and kind of is more aggressive in close games, especially at home here. So I like his floor a lot for cash. Kyrie, I think, is a tournament option only. Kemba, I don't mind small tournament exposure to, but not a guy I'm really looking to target overall against a tough Indy defense. Conley, I think at 7,200 is a strong cash play. I think it's a cash play at both sites. Ish, not really playing big minutes lately. Maybe some tournament exposure to get, exposure to that total and low ownership there. Darren could be a cash play, but I'm a little bit worried about his dislocated finger, so I'm fading him personally on this slate. He makes for an interesting tournament play with the really, really soft matchup there. Clarkson, I think you can have some tournament exposure to. Schroeder, you can have some tournament exposure to, like you always should with his high upside. After that, D'Angelo Russell, I think, is fine for tournaments with his extended minutes we've seen recently and coming off a good game against Memphis. Darren Collison, I like as a sneaky tournament play, getting exposure to the highest implied total on the slate. After that, I don't think there's anybody really worth mentioning there. So, yeah, Justin, you got a shooting guard?
No, I'll leave that to you, buddy, and I'll grab the big man.
You want me to get shooting guard too?
Get the best. You get the best position.
Shooting guard is garbage, man. All right, so Jimmy Butler's out. DeMar DeRozan, I think tournament exposure is fine. Oladipo, I don't mind for cash. Probably more so on FanDuel where he's a bit discounted. Not as inclined to go him in cash on DK at 7K. but I do like the matchup and the way he's been playing lately. Batum, I don't mind some tournament exposure to either, but kind of in the same lines as Kemba. Is not a guy I'm really targeting here. Beal, I don't mind in cash on FanDuel at 6,400 on DK. I think he's a fine tournament play off the bench with a really easy matchup, obviously. Monte, I think you can have some tournament exposure to. Fournier, I think, is a stronger cash play on FanDuel, not as strong on DK where he's priced up a little bit. Still a solid play overall. Jamal Crawford we like in tournaments. Etuan Moore, this is probably a FanDuel-specific play where he's a lot cheaper. If Derrick Rose is out again, I don't mind him in cash. Will Barton I like in tournaments on both sites. JJ Redick, more so a cash play on FanDuel where he's 4,900, but don't necessarily mind the 5,100 price here on DK for cash. Gary Harris, I think, is a decent cash play, but I like the other guys right above him a bit more. And after that, I'm skipping on Kyle Korver, unfortunately. Don't see anyone else after that. All right, Pete, your time to shine. What do you got with small forwards?
Juicy small forward position for the 26. Starting off with LeBron James, 9,500. Definitely a lead option in cash and tournaments. He's the king for a reason. Like Paul George, probably more than what is going to be the consensus around him in this spot, 8,500. I think he's a nice way to differentiate your lineup, especially in tournaments. Love Melo. I think he's the strongest play in terms of cash relative to these guys, are right there with LeBron. Not as high on Rudy Gay, although he is relatively cheap on DraftKings at only 6,500. Definitely has some upside there. Chandler Parsons, another guy kind of in that Rudy Gay category that's interesting. Then we get to the gem. Matt Barnes. Lock of the century in my lineup. I'm going to have Matt Barnes against the Lakers, regardless of the news. He's going to be in my lineup against the Lakers. Covington, I never really play Covington unless Noel or Okafor is out, but this is a decent spot here against Washington.
On FanDuel too, he's 4,700 now, which is criminally cheap.
Yeah, so I think he's an interesting play, especially in this matchup. But definitely something to consider, especially if news breaks. Not really on any of these other guys, kind of in this mid-tier range on DraftKings. I mean, I guess you can play Otto Porter. His role's kind of changed with Bradley Beal back and everyone healthy, coming up awful game for Chicago, but it is still Philly. One guy I got to bring up that I think is at least a little interesting is Thabo. He's really cheap. If you want to just totally punt the position here, he should play a decent amount of minutes. It's only 3,700, and you got to just dumpster dive with these guys. I mean, he's it's better recommending Thabo than Lance Stevenson.
I was just gonna say, man, you're dumpster diving. How did you forget your boy Lance?
I'm dumpster diving hard. The other one is James Johnson at 3,300.
Oh my! All right, you're dumpster diving way too much. There's no need for this.
I mean, I'm in the low threes. I mean, who else?
you still, that's how it works. You just skip them. Yeah.
I'm trying to give some coverage here. I mean, it's hard.
Oh no, but you need to go lower than that bar. That's where all right.
That's where
how
it
is supposed to work.
Disregard all commentary after Matt Barnes.
Oh, okay.
All right, Justin, hit us with.
I was trying to say Thabo too. We have him kind of rated.
Thabo, yeah, nah. I mean,
he's gonna get 19 points at 3,700.
That's
great for tournaments. Yeah.
All right, let's move to power forward here on DK. DeMarcus Cousins, obviously solid, but way too expensive for this slate, and I don't think you have anything more than tournament exposure to him. Paul Millsap, 7,800 on both DK and FanDuel, solidly in cash consideration for both. One of my favorite plays of the slate against that Bulls front court. Kevin Love, only tournaments. Zebo, Zach Randolph, 7,100 on DK, 6,500 on FanDuel. I like him a lot more on FanDuel. One of the better cash game options there. Always good with some Aaron Gordon exposure in tournaments, but tougher matchup against Porzingis. Speaking of Porzingis, also a tournament option. Dirk Nowitzki, weird spot, high total, but I'm not playing him in cash over Paul Millsap. So, and he doesn't have that elite tournament upside either. So, kind of in a weird spot where he's kind of a mid-end mid-level cash option. Nerlens, can look at him in tournaments. Had a big game against Washington before, but always volatile in that Sixers front court, how the minutes shake out. Julius Randle, we're good with him. On FanDuel at 6,100, 6K on DK as well. Like we talked about, not a lot of depth behind him. With Larry Nance hurting. And beyond that, let's see. It's a little dicey.
Get to the low 3Ks and throw out some names.
Oh, God.
Quincy Acey, perfect.
David Lee might make his Mavs debut. No, let's see.
I think he did.
He already made his debut.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He played 15 minutes the other day.
How deep can you dig in the dumpster?
Not deep enough, apparently.
Yeah, not very. Man.
Dude, it's not that hard, boys.
All right, Pete.
Brendan Wright.
Brandon Wright, yeah. Didn't someone play him in cash against you?
Patrick Patterson.
Oh, Patrick Patterson. Yeah, that's the guy you dig for. I'm fine with him.
Yeah.
If you want to go someone in the 3Ks.
If you want to just
and ruin your lineups and throw money away, but yeah. All right, who's got center?
Go ahead, Jay Sean. Oh,
I can take center, I guess.
Oh, strong finish, Pete.
Strong finish from Pete. Pau Gasol, definitely an option. Coming off a really nice game, even being white as a ghost and sick, and apparently on the verge of not playing, he just crushes.
Yep.
Gross sits out. Not bitter about that one at all. DeAndre Jordan, interesting play. I prefer some other options, but some decent history for Sacramento and certainly a viable option at 7,900 on DraftKings. Vucevic, 7,700, continues to be underpriced, but on a back-to-back here, I like the next guy a lot more, and that's Al Horford. Al Horford's my guy at 7,100 on DraftKings. Great matchup, coming up a huge game, and great history versus Chicago. So I like that quite a bit. Gortat, another great play at 6,700 against Philly. Should have a nice game. Definitely think he's in consideration, but probably still like Horford more than him. Okafor, I think you can have a lot of tournament exposure to him if you want to go heavily weighted towards someone that's a little bit different. Definitely big upside against Washington, but not a cash game play for me either. We talked about Jokic and Zaza. I think they're both very close. 5,800 for Zaza, 57 for Jokic. Both of them are in play. I think Jokic is especially a strong tournament play. Jay and Justin both don't mind him for cash, though. Robin Lopez, big upside at center as well. Just puts up these big games from random spots. Mahimi, another guy you can play. Then after that, it gets a little trickier to dumpster dive. Willie Cauley-Stein had that nice Euro step.
How many DK points do they get for Euro step?
He should get more.
Should get double fantasy points for that. That was nice. Did you guys see that, Brian?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's real nice. And then we can dumpster dive with some absolute donkeys. You guys want to?
I mean, if I'm dumpster diving, I'm looking at possibly Frank Kaminsky as a dumpster diver.
I don't mind it.
Well, I know you love dumpster diving, apparently.
Dude, you don't know the ultimate dumpster dive? Ultimate dumpster dive. Who could,
Cole Aldrich?
No, dude. Could be even more of a dumpster dive.
Oh, no.
See if you can guess it. There's a dumpster dive lurking down here.
Is Lance Stevenson center eligible on DK now?
Nope, he's not. But there is one that I think is a really sneaky one. And you guys talked about the other guy that you like, but this I think is a good dumpster dive play.
Joff?
Oh yeah.
King Joff?
Dude, Joff could come in and get like 25, 30 minutes, put up that 30, 35 fantasy points at only 3,600. He could.
You're right. No, you're right. I'm not going to dismiss that. Dumpster diving's pretty fun.
It is fun. Not profitable, but fun. That's pretty much it for center. I mean, any other final thoughts, boys, for the slate?
Not really. It seems like a pretty straightforward slate for cash. I think you've got pretty clear cash, at least options at each position, kind of strong cash. But I think we highlighted power forward, possibly Zebo. So, you got a bevy of center options, but I think we all kind of agree at Horford's price. We kind of like him probably the most, that juicy matchup. And shooting guard, I mean, we have a lot of cheap guys, especially on FanDuel. Picking 2 of those guys, I think, is going to be really easy. Redick and guys like that with easy matchups. And then I kind of spend up at point guard with either Chris Paul or John Wall, and it's a wrap. Call it.
Conley too.
Conley too, yeah, right. So like Chris Paul and Conley, or Wall and Conley, something like that.
Or both the guys. Yeah, fantastic podcast, Justin. Any final thoughts?
I think on the flip side, I think it sets up like a kind of an interesting tournament slate because there's so many obvious cash game plays. You can kind of go a lot of different ways here, like Boogie Cousins, DeAndre, Melo, Kevin Love,
Paul George, even.
George.
A lot of cash plays. You just kind of pivot. I mean, Porzingis is a good one, especially kind of pivoting off Zach Randolph. You know, a lot of guys kind of look at similar prices to some of these cash options and pivot to the lower owned guy, and that could definitely spark some value there.
For sure.
Final thoughts for me is step 1, put in Matt Barnes. Step 2, win all the money.
Step 2, like 10 question marks. Step 3, profit.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks for doing this pod. We'll get back to you with a Sunday pod breaking down the Monday slate. And definitely hit us up on Twitter if you guys do take down any tournaments with any of Pete's horrible dumpster diving recommendations, because I'm really curious if
someone wins a tournament with any of those dumpster divers that I had at small forward or center, send a screenshot and I'll give someone either like a free ticket or I'll do something nice. What do you normally do for the hat? Crossover ticket.
Crossover ticket. Yeah,
I'll sponsor that.
We'll do something cool. I'll pitch in as well, if because Pete's dumpster diving plays were so bad that I think if you even just putting them in a lineup takes some cojones. So we'll definitely reward you if you take down a tournament with a dumpster play. But until then, good luck, everyone. We'll get back with you guys on Sunday night.